Hello, from Cork to the world. This is the Song Collector Podcast, brought to you by Roy Buckley Music. Okay, Roy, we're back again with another episode of the Song Collector Podcast. Again, the new music continues to come in. I have a special one to start with today. I've chosen today's one. We are going to be talking with the bard himself, our own bard, John Spillane. This was a fun interview. He brought his guitar. We're not allowed to say where we recorded it other than describe it as the Hit Factory.
You got there. I wanted to do that. Welcome to the Hit Factory.
That's exactly what he said when he opened the door. He's a fun guy.
I love John Spillane. He's an absolute character. Beautiful songwriter. He just paints beautiful pictures and imagery in his songs.
And a storyteller supreme.
Big time, yeah. And I just do the way he plays his guitar as well. Those melodies, man. It's just
that's like, it. And because
stuck in your head
he's
for
a
days.
gifted guitarist.
Oh yeah.
We were talking about Browner in the last episode. Browner is just a legend, but actually on a softer level, playing lovely, sweet, folky, soft. Spillane's gifted.
Big time, yeah.
Gifted.
And it's funny because you mentioned Dave Brown there. I've had well, you've been there too, sure, but I've had John Spillane and Dave Brown on Song Collector sessions together. Funny story. Dave and John were on a gig here in Cork, and John was going to do the Dance of the Cherry Trees, you know, that beautiful song, right? And he just goes, Dave Brown, come on off here. I make this sound like a cherry tree. And Dave did his take and it was great. And
Brown slayed it a bit.
Then they finished and John goes, ladies and gentlemen, that's what a cherry tree sounds like. It was brilliant.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. So that's coming up. Now the new song to start with today is my old pal Ruby Tina. Now, Ruby's been writing songs and recording in her own little setup at home for years. And in the last while she's gone to making video. And this is a new song she's put out on video called Lie to Me. And it's catching a big interest because you've got to watch the video to the end.
On the YouTube, is it?
On the YouTube.
All right. I haven't seen the video.
It's such a beautiful, beautiful song. It's called Lie to Me, and I wanted to give it a spin today. This is from Cork, Ruby Tina.
I can feel tears behind my face, and I know my smile's about to fade. I can feel I'm holding it back, 'cause I'm trying not to break. Only for so long, only for so long. If I could lie to myself, I'd lie. If I could fool myself, I'd try. But it's no use, it's no good to me. I've done everything. If I could lie to myself, I'd lie. If I could fool myself, I'd try. But it's no use, it's no good to me. I've done everything, I won't let myself. If I could lie to myself, I'd lie. If I could fool myself, I'd try. But it's no use, it's no good to me. I've done everything, I won't let myself. I won't let myself cry. Won't let myself cry. Won't let myself cry. Won't let myself. Won't let myself. I won't let myself cry. Won't let myself cry. Won't let myself cry. Won't let myself. Won't let myself.
You're listening to the Song Collector podcast, brought to you from Cork, Ireland, by Roy Buckley Music. Ruby's been one of these artists, Roy, that I've been kind of following and made friends with years ago, and someday she's going to break, and it won't be just a break, it'll be an earthquake.
I know Ruby from around the scene and all that. We've met loads of times over the years. Great voice, great piano player as well. And she's always, as you said, she's been writing songs for a while. But yeah, she's really great though. I mean, yeah, you'd expect someone like Ruby to definitely break at some stage with the amount of work she puts in.
Yeah, she will. I just know.
And that was a great shout out of you. Great song choice.
She's super. Now, to John Spillane, what can you say about Spillane? He's around forever. He will be around forever. He never changes except the hair turns a little bit greyer. How long have you known Spillane?
I've known him a very long time. John has been a great friend of the Song Collector sessions since the start, really. We were in the Pav, we were out in Douglas, we've been in Port we've been everywhere. John is after doing a ball of these gigs with us. But I just, anytime I ever see John, I'm just kind of enthralled. He's very witty. His songs are great. They're happy, they're sad, they're quirky, they're funny. They're like he as a songwriter, John can tick lots of boxes. I mean, it's just, again, man, I know I keep mentioning his melodies, but do you ever watch him the way he plays? You'll be going home humming the songs and it's in your head for ages. That's just John, you know.
That is the secret. His songs just wrap you up in them. Because you have to listen to the story. And you have to listen to the lyric with John. Because if you don't get the package.
Yeah, and his Christmas specials that he does every year have become legendary.
Gosh, they're sold out in February. They're sold out in February, like, it's crazy.
It's just, a lot of people don't realise that John was a rocker back in his day as well.
And he tells us all about that in a good chat we had with him in the Hit Factory. So here we go. Cork's own bard, John Spillane. Was there a particular point when you decided, this is what I'm going to do for a living? This is how I intend to make my bread?
Well, I don't think there was one particular point, like, but like, I finished school now when I was 17, and you had to get a job, and I didn't want to go to college because I was fed up of books, like, and I did an interview for the ESP, the Bank of Ireland, the AIB, and the Civil Service. At that time in 1978, that was the thing, like, they were the four things you did. And I got the Bank of Ireland, so I wasn't particularly interested in banking or anything, like. But as far as my mother was concerned, I was one sorted during the 1 out of 5. So I went to Limerick and I got a job in the bank. But then I was thinking, like, I'm going to be a banker. No, that's my life.
Yeah.
Till I'm 65, like, do you know what I mean?
I really feel.
I mean, which is good in one way because they were a nice crowd, like, and you know, it was good wages, of course, and it was sorted. But I said, like, what about all the other stuff, like, you know what I mean?
Things you're missing out on.
Like going through the jungles of Africa, like, you know, catching malaria, going to the moon. I don't know. It just seemed like there must have been more to life.
Yeah.
So
you didn't want to close that door at 18, like.
Well, it was closed at 18 because you see, like, when you're in, like, and when you get to car loan, then when you're 19, you have you then.
Yeah, because you're paying it back.
Yeah. So I was playing in a band in Cork, and I was we were playing in Sir Henry's every Wednesday night. I was hitching up.
Would this have been Sabre?
Well, we were called Bootless first, and then we were called Sabre.
Okay.
But so we went full time with the band, and my buddy Tony Buckley was working in the Hibernian Insurance Company, 80 South Mall Cork, and he had a job for Lifetime as well. And so we made a pact that we got a manager actually, and when we got the man, we were playing at Henry's, like, and we had a PA and we had a van, and we went full time. So so it was very scary, but we kind of jumped off the cliff.
How did that go down at home?
Well, my mother said to me, "Don't ever come back to this house again if you leave your good job in the bank."
Right.
But then I rang her. I said, "I'm after handing in my notice," and she said, "I sure will see you Friday night."
So how did you go from? Because Sabre was it was a rock band, really, wasn't it?
Sabre was a rock band. I was playing bass.
Right, and
Yeah.
because the journey from going from a rock band to your folk songs, now brilliant and everyone sings them all over the world, but it's a total different genre. So how did that transition happen?
Well, so I was playing the rock band, but the band broke up after about a year. And I won't go into the details of the band broken up, but I left my own band. And I walked off into the darkness. And as well as playing the rock bass and singing, I used to play acoustic guitar as well. And I was written a few songs on the acoustic, and that was a different thing. And that was for more like after the rock gig, you'd sit down and you'd have an acoustic session.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? Like, with like Christy Moore songs and planks, you know, Irish ballady kind of songs. And at that time in Cork, Johnny Campbell used to organise these games of soccer between the punks, the rockers and the folkies. And we used to play down in St. Michael's in Blackrock. And I was with the rockers.
Right.
And the rockers and the folkies. So the rockers were Sir Henry's crowd. That's what I was... Like, we used to go to Sir Henry's all the time and be in the Hall of Fame in Sir Henry's. Right. Like, cool dudes who were in the bands and play there on a Wednesday night. And Jimmy McCarthy was God, Declan Sinnott was God, and Small Change and some of the Cork rock bands that were brilliant.
Some greats in there, isn't there?
Were great. So so we were the rockers, but then the folkies were the Phoenix crowd, and that was like Jimmy Crowley, Jackie Daly and Seamus Cray, Mick Daly, Ona Riavig, all the Stoker's Lodge crowd. The Phoenix, they were the folkies. And then the punks were actually in the Phoenix as well, but they were upstairs in the Phoenix. There were 5 going on to the sea, None Attacks, Belson and those kind of punk bands that were there, Micro Disney. They were a disgrace. They never won a soccer match because they were always drinking cans and smoking joints and all that kind of stuff. I thought you were going to
say something about Micro Disney. They were one of my favourite bands.
Yeah, as well.
I don't think they ever actually, now that I say it, even though they were one of the punk bands, I don't think they ever appeared on the soccer pitch. Oh, Chris McCarthy actually played soccer. He was in Micro Disney. Yeah, so they were represented, all right. But anyway, there was 3 crowds in Cork, and I changed from being a rocker to being a folkie. And
you got the transfer.
After I left the band, then I stopped hanging around in Sir Henry's and going over to the Phoenix more. I was in the Phoenix a lot, and I kind of I was a huge fan of Jimmy McCarthy. Jimmy McCarthy was on fire at that time. He was writing all the great songs.
Sure.
Like, I remember the day I walked into Henry's and he sang Ride On for the first time. He just wrote it that week. Like O'Flynn's, The Donkey's Ears, he played upstairs there once a week. He played in Sir Henry's once a week. He played in Gary's Inn once a week with his band. You know, so Jimmy was always doing gigs. You could see him like nearly every week. But anyway, so then I started hanging around in the Phoenix crowd, and then Noel Shine, who was a musician from Clare, who was living in Cork. Jimmy McCarthy actually put us together because he said there's a gig happening in RTE. It's called Sounds Promising. It's a Shea Healy gig, and they're looking for new up and coming talent. And for some reason, Jimmy said, Noel and John, you should do it together. So I don't know, I can't remember the ins and outs of it. But anyway, Noel and Jimmy were sharing a house on Barrack Street at the time, and I used to be up there all the time. And me and Noel Shine came together, and we entered this thing called Sounds Promising, and we sang a song by Noel and a song by mine, and 2 acoustic guitars. and then we became a kind of a group called Noel Shine and John Spillane, and it was just two acoustics, and I was doing my acoustic set then, and then there was a record brought out called The Best of Sounds Promising, and my song ended up on the record. It was the first song I had released. The Best of Sound Promising, 1983 or 1984, 1983 or 1984, and the LP is actually still inside in the Cork Music Library.
Do you remember the name of that song? That was on
The song was My Love Will Not Sing For Me.
Okay.
We'll do one short verse of it.
I'd love to hear it.
My love will not sing for me. She cannot find the time. She sits among the tables, drinking blood red wine. That's the first verse of it. So I revisited it then this year when I did the acoustic series volume 1.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was my song, My Love Will Not Sing For Me. Yeah, well, I was around at home then being a musician, and my mother said to me, why don't you go to college in the daytime and do the music at night? And anyway, if you're going to be living in this house and all that.
Yeah.
So so we worked out a deal, and I went to UCC and I did a degree in Irish English, and I did it really to hone my skills for being a songwriter. Do you know what I mean? I thought the English would be handy for being a songwriter, and the Irish would be handy for being a songwriter.
Both of them understood to you.
Both of them stood to me, but I got on great in the Irish in UCC because I learned a lot of Irish, and I had a whole thing going on in Ballyvorney then, and Cooley, and so the Irish was good, and I learned Irish, which was very useful because I was learning it before it was profitable or popular.
Yeah.
And we never thought in a million. There wasn't even
You were just doing it for the love of it.
Yeah, it was a thing but we never thought there'd be a TG Cahir, and people were laughing at the idea of a TG Cahir, and even when TG Cahir was founded, people were still attacking it from every side.
And here we are years later.
Yeah, it's been 25 years now, yeah.
And you're out doing things in Africa for TG Cahir and everything. I saw a couple of series.
So thank God for TG Cahir, but you remember all that thing about TG Cahir. I mean, it was attacked. I mean, Irish gets attacked all the time, man. The Irish language gets attacked hugely on every level, But anyway, so I did the older degree, but I mean I was gigging then at night and all that kind of crack, and I only scraped and all passed in the end. But I learned what I wanted to learn out of it. But I didn't like English in UCC at all because I found I was in the camp of the enemy, Roy Buckley, in the camp of the enemy, and the enemy is the critic. Like, I'm a creative writer, but like when you do a degree in English, there's no mention of creative writing. What you're learning, what you're doing in a degree is in criticism. Do you know what I'm saying?
I do.
As Brendan Behan called the critics, the eunuchs in the harem. They don't do nothing, only make comments about what people who do things.
Yeah.
So the English anyway, it was criticism, and I didn't get on well there really, but I mean I scraped the pass, as I say, in the end. So then I was playing gigs really, and then during the time I was in college then, I played bass, you see, and I used to work as a bass player around Cork, like for wedding bands or whatever, like, and then I was lucky enough to get a gig with Jimmy Crowley, and Jimmy Crowley and Stoker's Lodge, and after Stoker's Lodge, then he had a thing called the Quartet, which was an acoustic quartet. Jimmy Crowley's first quartet was Jimmy Crowley, Mick Hanley, Martin O'Connor, and Johnny Campbell, and that was some band like, and then his second quartet was Jimmy Crowley. I was playing acoustic bass with him. Johnny Fang Murphy was playing guitar, and we were. That was the first proper, really paying gig that I got. Really was working for Jimmy Crowley, playing bass with him, and I spent 2 summers playing with him, and it was brilliant. And he was in all the Cork songs, which was a fierce education. You couldn't pay for it. And Christy Toomey used to be there with him, and he knew all the. I mean, I played at the fair in Spencer Hill with Jimmy Crowley, like when he was like doing the Boys of Fair Hill and all that, like, and the Flan, the Stole, played in the north of Ireland. I went to all kinds of places with Jimmy, and So that was a fierce education that you could not pay for. Better than any university.
And was that your first time meeting Johnny Fang? Because the Stargazers happened then as well.
Yeah, the Stargazers came out of that then because, like, I was playing with Noel Shine and John Spillane, but I was also playing with Jimmy Crowley. And in Cork at that time, I suppose, like, no, like, everybody was playing with everybody, like, you know what I mean? So Johnny Fang then, who was in Johnny Murphy, was a member of Stoker's Lodge, acoustic guitar player, and a folk trad musician, like, and they were a great band. And Johnny was just investigating jazzy chords. He was getting fascinated by jazzy chords, and he was learning songs by Leon Redbone. He was a guy doing retro, kind of jazzy American old-fashioned music, and Johnny was learning like diminished chords and, you know, ninths, and he was fascinated by them. But you see, I knew all them because I was mad for the Beatles when I was a young fella. Like, I knew all the Beatles songs, and the Beatles like have the very classic jazz chord progressions, yeah, like, and they have diminished and augmented and sixths and, you know, all kinds of so I knew all that kind of those chords, so I was able to, you know, not show Johnny, but I was working with Johnny, and we worked out a few fancy jazz songs. Like, I remember the first one we think was, why won't you kindly tell me why you always leave me high and dry? Give all the other boys attention, dear. You know, these kind of jazzy songs. And chords like that. And so it was only just for fun. And then Johnny said, like, Johnny said, why don't we get another guitar player in, like, and we tried one guy, and then we tried Chris Ahern. And Chris Ahern and me and Johnny, we had a few get-togethers where we were working out, like, I think that was the first song we did, Why, but we did it in 3-part harmony.
Great.
And then myself and Chris would go into oohs for the chorus, and Johnny would do the main vocal, and we were laughing our heads off because it was just like very funny stuff. Like,
oh, it sounded great. The Stargazers.
Well, stuff comes from that then, from messing around and playing around. Stuff actually comes from it.
Oh yes, and we like between the three of us now, we had 2 acoustic guitars. I was playing the bass, so we had 2 guitars and a bass and 3 voices, and you could do an awful lot with that. It was great fun. We used to go to we used to practice once or twice a week, and we had great fun. And we go for a few pints after, and it was more of a joke than a real thing. And then we got a gig, and we had 10 songs, and we got a gig. There's a lot of work in that kind of music. Like, we used to play in O'Flynn's on Union Quay upstairs, and then Johnny suggested that we put on the tuxedos for a laugh, and we put on the tuxedos for a laugh, and everybody, like the Stargazers, the early Stargazers gigs were a huge amount of fun. Because we were playing all this stuff that you know, the kind of jazzy harmony stuff, and then we were wearing the tuxedos, and it was great. It was like a party. Every gig was like a party, and it was great fun. And I never meant to play that kind of music, but it was so enjoyable that I ended up playing with the Stargazers for 7 years. Wow. Yeah, but I was on my way to do my own stuff, but we were such good friends. We were having a good time, and we got gigs. We were on a talent show in RTE television on 1985, I think, called Sounds Promising, and we won all the heats, and we were beaten in the final by Fiona Kennedy, who was a neighbour of mine from Highfield, and she won it when she batted her eyes at the camera. and so we say anyway, but when she batted her eyes at the camera, so that's it, it's all over, lads.
That's it.
So but we got kind of well known out of that, and we got a lot of work. So and I played at the Stargazers until 1991. I left the band in 1991 to do my own stuff. Yeah. And I swore I was never going to join another band again or play bass, and again I was going to do just my own songs. And then I played for a while in a duo with John Spillane and Johnny McCarthy. We did the Lobby Bar once a month, and then I joined Nomos, even though I said I wouldn't join the band. They were a brilliant traditional band, and they were from Armagh, Donegal, Wexford, and County Clare, and they were all in Cork because Micheál O'Sullivan was in Cork. Micheál was a big presence in Cork. He was head of music in UCC, and you could do a degree in traditional music as opposed to classical music, and he attracted all kinds of brilliant musicians to Cork in the same way as he's been attracting every kind of musician and dancer to Limerick now since he left Cork 20 years ago or 15 years ago. So we had a band called Nomos, a traditional band, and I played fretless bass, and I did my own songs then in the band as well, in between the tunes. And I played with Nomos from 1992 until 1998, something like that. And then I finally went solo.
Yeah.
And I've been solo ever since. 20 years.
Flying. You mentioned the lobby there, John. You've so many great songs. I probably won't get to ask you about a whole lot of them, but Magic Nights in the Lobby Bar, what a cracker of a song.
Oh, thanks, Roy.
You know that's a winner.
Well, yeah, when Christy Moore records it, you know, it has to be good.
Sure, Christy Moore is after doing what? Magic Nights in the Lobby Bar, Johnny Don't Go to Ballincollig, Gorta Togart. I mean, he's after covering a good few of your songs.
Love Christy. Yeah.
Mm.
And when I was writing songs for years, nobody would ever sing any one of my songs, even though I was sending them to people. But no, I couldn't catch any fish because it seemed like the songs were a bit queer.
Right.
You know, they were,
I always thought that there were songs written about things that other people wouldn't write songs about. Like who else would write a song about a girl working in Dunn's stores?
Yeah, well, there you are. So
You
maybe
know.
that was why. But
That's the creative mind.
And the one, my favourite line of all your songs, the jumped up little manager in a suit that doesn't rhyme.
Yeah.
I can see the little bollocks in Dunn's stores.
leave those managers alone. No one does. That's it.
Yeah.
So nobody would cover the songs, but then eventually, Christy has done them. Like so, so happy days.
I wanted to ask you just about Magic Nights, because you mentioned Ricky Lynch and Brendan Ring and Joe Wolf.
Yeah,
Why? Because the lobby was an institution.
yeah.
Why did you pick those three guys out of?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. Well, I kind of do everything in threes.
Okay.
So like I am inclined to do 3 verses to a song,
Okay.
or I'm inclined to, it's just an Irish thing. Like
It's your thing, yeah.
it's like the shamrock, it's like the jigs and the reels, and it's like everything happens in trees. And so with the lobby bar, I picked 3 moments that were brilliant. There was a lot of brilliance.
That's what I mean.
there
There's
was
so
incredible
much,
gigs there that we didn't know how spoiled we were really. And so I just picked 3 special moments, and one was when I was sitting there and Brendan Ring, the piper, was playing Madame Bonaparte's this tune, and I had this feeling like of being transported. I remember the moment, having that feeling about it, like there was something, like he's a magical kind of a piper. He's back in Cork now, he's in Bantry now. He was away for years, but Brendan Ring, he was a fascinating character, but he played the pipes, Madame Bonaparte's. He was a big fan of Finn Barfury's piping. Finn Barfury had inspired him as a piper when he was a kid. Brendan grew up in England, but so that was one moment, and then another moment was listening to Ricky Lynch singing "Autumn in Mayfield," great song.
Yeah.
And
He's another beautiful.
it's not even on his record, I don't think.
He does it sometimes.
He does it sometimes, yeah.
It's he's another incredible artist.
It's a song about the day of his father's death. There's a coffin lying in the front room, and it was autumn. I swear, the song is called "Autumn in Mayfield," and the barley was ripe.
The harvest moon.
Yeah, great verse. So I quoted Ricky's
Stanza kind of thing.
stanza in my song, and then the other third moment I picked was Ger Wolf when he was singing that song called "The Lark of Mayfield," another Mayfield connection. And people are often ask me, am I from Mayfield? But no, I'm not. I'm from Wilton. But like we spent our whole childhood getting the number 8 into town, which said Mayfield, Gert Alling on it. So I think Mayfield to me was some faraway imaginary place. But it's ended up in the songs anyway. I left Nomos and I went full time as doing all my own stuff, and I used to be in the lobby. And then when I became 40 years old, I got a phone call from this guy, Larkin Ennis. He said I'm a manager.
Another great guy.
And I had a very good feeling about that phone call. I kind of knew. This sounds funny now, but when Larkin, I just kind of knew. It wasn't like I was hoping. I kind of knew, which is strange to say. But anyway, he got me a deal with EMI. So for my 40th birthday, I got a leather jacket and a 5-album contract with EMI Ireland, and it took them a long time to persuade EMI to come and see me. They had no interest in me actually, but eventually when they did come to see me, I got the deal. So then I made a record, Will We Be Brilliant or What, in 2002, and there was 4 singles off it. Like, you know, there was fierce. It was like a different level altogether with those people because they were EMI records, same label as the Beatles, like EMI Ireland, but still a major.
Yeah, huge.
And the first single was The Dance of the Cherry Trees. Sorry, the first single was We're Going Sailing, No One Will Believe Us. Dance of the Cherry Trees, something else, I don't know. It was 4 singles and then the record. And
Cherry Trees was such... that's an iconic song.
Thank you so much.
That is an iconic song. I had that, like, was that just simply a matter of walking through, say, Ballyfihan and seeing the pink rain, as I call it? Did it come from that? Or
well, I've always enjoyed Pierce Road and Ballyfihan, and like when I often would like drive down it like at the end of April.
Yeah.
So I was very aware of that, like.
Yeah.
But what happened to me now was I wasn't feeling well. I had a collapsed lung.
Right.
Collapsed lung. I was a sore boy, and I was up in the COH, and I came out of the COH, and my side was really sore. I was feeling really rotten, and I ran into a cherry blossom tree. No, I think it was the Wilton roundabout. It doesn't matter anyway, but the cherry blossom tree seemed ridiculously illuminated, pink and shiny, and like a vision in somebody's front garden. And I was, geez, look at that.
There was another one as well, and again, you told me this actually, where there was a man. Do you remember that? There was a man who took a wife. Remember that one?
Yeah.
And I always had I put a strange meaning into that song.
Yeah,
I thought he was a violent man. Do you remember that?
Oh, you did. You remember you told me that years ago, PJ. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
where'd that come from? Another lovely song.
Well, with that particular song, now, I made up a guitar part, and I was playing it, and I was addicted to playing it. I still can't play it right. You know, it's hard to play.
Sounds right to me.
Anyway, and it goes around. Now, I did get married in 2002, so that had something to do with it. And but I had the tune, I'd say, for a long time, and I could play it all day and all night, and I had no words to go with it. And I was going to put it to the W.B. Yeats poem. I went into the hazelwood because a fire was in my head, because that fits it perfectly. I went into a hazelwood because a fire was in my head, and cut and peel. You know, I would have fitted it, so I was going to use it for that. And then I thought it wouldn't be better not to get one of your own, you know, your own lyrics, like, push it on, like, rather than bowing down to W.B. Yeats, like. So, actually, I went for a swim in the hellhole. You know the hellhole?
Out in English, right?
Yeah, so I'd go in there around, it's only in the summer, like, there's a short window, really. And I dived into the hellhole anyway, and I just started, I was just a head above water. The rest of me was gone. I was a talking head. I was like the fella in the old folktale. He got his head cut off and he kept talking. There was a man who took a wife to walk beside him through his life. I just made up the words. That's the way.
That's a momentary inspiration. Now, what do you do then? Do you jump out of the water, wrap something around yourself and write it down, or did it?
Yeah, no, you remember it. I don't write things down at all, really. You know, you remember the gist of it. I think that's any good. You remember. But I think that kind of stuff that comes from training. I think if you're used to writing songs, you know what I mean? Like if you wrote a song every one a month, if you wrote a song one a month for 10 months, even if they were cat, right? And I thought about how good they are at all. When it comes to the 11th month, you'll write another one. It's called training the horse. Do you get me, PJ?
I do, yeah. Because I often, as I said to you, I mean, I often used to wonder, listening to your songs in a show, where did the idea come from that,
that's
for
nice,
that song?
Yeah. And John, would you put...
But I see I was after getting married, I suppose, a few months earlier, so that's probably where it came from, but I wasn't thinking at all.
So, do you spend a lot of time, would you put time aside weekly or daily or monthly to work on songs?
No, I don't. I never do that. And I never do this thing that people do, like sitting down in the morning with a blank sheet of paper. Like I just be tipping away, like when I'm driving around or in between things.
Whenever you get inspired, kind of.
Yeah, well, you see what the thing is, like, I usually have a project. You know what I mean? A song going.
Down to your head, that makes you more focused if you're given a.
Well, I'm good if I get a start at all. I'm good at talking it up and doing the pep talk and finishing out, like.
Yeah.
Like I'm writing a song at the moment now, like it's nearly finished. But then when I'm finished, then what happens is an empty space with no song. Then you're looking around, like, and if you're hungry, like, you get some bit of a start. That kind of crack.
Did you write an opera, or did you start to write an opera? Did you?
Yeah, well, I wrote the opera, and I wrote the first. Well, it's a work in progress at the moment. I'm shelving it now for the moment, but the opera is called Fairytale, The Legend of the Loch, and it's written on a plaque out at the loch, but which no one ever read. That I haven't found a single Cork person who read this. Everyone goes, what? It's invisible. It obviously has been surrounded in a fairy mist by the fairies down from Fairy Lawn, and the King of Crotamore, and the legend was published in 1820. Fairy Legends of the South of Ireland by Thomas Crofton Croker, who was a fascinating Cork personality in 1820. It was a huge selling book. Fairy tales were big at the time. Translated to German by the Brothers Grimm, Hans Christian Andersen, and here in Cork, Thomas Crofton Croker. And like that was a huge book at the time. And The Legend of the Loch is one of the stories. And I was going to do something about it, and I thought, like, it's actually an opera. So I began writing the opera, and I wrote a lot of it, and then I did a week's development work with Cork site-specific theatre company, Pat Kiernan, and with John O'Brien, who's a very talented Cork musician who's staging his own opera now, The Nightingale and the Rose, next month in Cork, in the Everyman. And so we did a week's development work with 2 sopranos and a baritone in the Triskel in 2016, and then I did a load more working on it, and then this year in February we did another week's development work in the Triskel, again with 2 sopranos and a baritone, and I finished the first finished draft of it at Christmas. But now after the last week I'm kind of fed up with it now for the moment. I'm just giving it a break. So there's a final draft done, but it needs to be rewritten now, and it's a colossal amount of work to rewrite something like that. For me it is, because I don't have the skills to write the dots or anything. Right. So anyway, it does exist, and there's a draft of it there. It needs to be rewritten, then it'll be ready for orchestration, then it'll be ready for production. But the dream is to stage it, and it's set on St. John's Eve, Bonfire Night. The dream is to put it on the loch on Bonfire Night. It won't be this year. It won't be next year anyway. Like, it'll be
turn out for that.
And it'll cost a fortune, but it would be very magical to put it on like in the twilight. Yeah. You see, it's about before there was any loch there. It's set in ancient Ireland when there was no loch, but there was a castle there in the Green Valley, and about the well, and then at the end of the opera, the well overflows and the loch is formed. Right. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So they all drown, but that's it. Like, it's
something I always admired about you, John, because your research into your songs and the time you take to go, you don't just try and do it quickly, because all people see usually is the performer on stage just doing the song, but that, in a way, that's kind of the easy part, because it's the research of learning about it, fitting the music to the words or the other way around and all that. There's enough that, like, you're brilliant at that. Another thing I loved about you was how you did that documentary with Irish TV, TG Carr, where you went to the different towns around Ireland and you wrote a song for each town when you were in the town. Some people couldn't do that in a million years, and you just churn out these great songs. I loved the one you did for Feather Town.
Oh, thank you.
That was great. Did you ever hear that one?
I didn't hear that one. No, the one I was going to ask you about was the famous 19-second song.
Oh,
Will I do it?
Yeah. We might as well.
Well, so there's a trick in life called the power of positive thinking. It's a famous thing. Like, it was a million-selling book. But so I got a gig off somebody to do the signature tune for Martin's Mad About Fish. So anyway, it's 19 seconds. Delicious the wishes, the fishes and dishes jumps out of the ocean and into the pan for Martin the cookery man. The salmon and knowledge below in the college, the cod on the rod, the jig on the dish. The fish is mad about Martin and Martin's mad about fish. 19 seconds, but that was probably about 15 there now because I rushed it. Like,
Yeah,
Do you know what I loved about it? He had to finish that with the last line. Had to be
Martin's
Martin's
Mad
Mad
About
About
Fish.
It's the line before that cracks me up. I love
the
it.
fish is mad about
Fish is
Martin.
mad about
Yeah,
Martin.
it's coming then. Like,
It's
yeah.
brilliant, John. And 19 seconds to do it for a TV intro for the program.
They love him so much that they commit kamikaze for him. Like, they dive out of the ocean. Like, cook me, Martin.
And into the pan, follow
Yeah.
There's been a lot of international stuff as well, though, John. I mean, you've travelled the world at this stage, and I remember you telling a story. Did you do the national anthem in Australia? And did you stand back and go, Jesus, look at this?
I did a national anthem in Australia. It was very upsetting because my mother died in October 2008 and I was going to Australia for a tour. Now I didn't know if I'd be going or not, but the week after she died I went to Australia, a few days after, and I flew to Perth and I got the gig to sing the national anthem, Irish Oran Avian, at this game in the what's it called? Supiaki, I can't remember the name of it now, stadium and in Perth, Ireland versus Australia, in the compromise rules. But like that's not my usual gig at all. Like I'm not like I had to walk out into the middle of the pitch and sing it like with no guitar, like to a backing track. So I did it, and it went well for me. I sang it grand, but it was very scary. I was very terrified.
How many people were at the game?
I think it was 32,000 at the game, like, but there was 9 million on the television or something, like, you know. But I don't know what the numbers are. But anyway, compromise rules, like it's a kind of a Makia game.
Yeah, the Aussie rules thing.
Aussie rules thing, yeah. But I was very nervous. I was in an awful state.
And this would be a song like you'd know since you were that high.
I see. Here's the funny thing about now. Here's the funny thing about this, right? I never learned Oran Avian. They never taught me at school.
Yeah.
I never knew the words of it. I knew except for Sheena Fianna
Irish
Fáil.
song he was. I didn't learn in school.
Yeah.
I did 3 albums about him.
I actually never learned the words of Oran Avian. I avoided it all my life, you know, and I made Gael Gord and all. I never learned
It was Pat O'Carney, wasn't it?
Pat O'Carney. Some things like that happen,
Yeah.
you know. You were missing that day, or they never done it, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, the same happened with the Hail Mary. I never learned the Hail Mary in Irish as well. Shade of Vaha Virra or something. People asked me to say that one time. I said I hadn't a clue. I never learned. You know, that's the way it goes.
The actually, what I mentioned, the albums of Irish songs, like they were an inspired idea. Where did that come from?
That came from EMI Records. When I was signed to EMI, I had a 5-album deal, and it was Willie Kavanagh, who was the managing director of EMI, came up with the idea. He said, you know what you should do now? You should do an album with Body Nilami, Oro Shedavahawalya, Trastan and Adonta on it, and I don't care what else you put on it. And I said, I'm open to the idea. You see, they saw the Gaeilge, they were positive towards, which I was surprised. They said, like, this Irish thing is growing. My kid is going to a Gael school, his kid is going to a Gael school. The Gaels, you know, they couldn't even get into a Gael school in Dublin.
Yeah.
And so it was Willie's suggestion, and he said it a few times. And the last time he said it, I said, "Give me a month, Willie," and I made up the list and I bought the book. There's a couple of books like Casauran, Ceol to Gael. Now, I didn't really learn all those songs at school at all. I mean, that wasn't the name. The original album was called Favourite Irish Songs, Favourite Irish Language Songs, Best Love. You know, there was various titles, but in the end, they went for Irish songs we learned at school. And I went out to the Ballincollig, to the Gael School, to Catherine Frost, and she's a great woman, and she's very involved in music. She was one of the Janacek sisters long ago, and a very positive person. And I had been out there for various reasons before, and I knew the crack, like, that it's a great school, Gael Chalash to Chullum. And so I went out there, and she got her first year class, and we recorded Body Nilami, Trastan down to Begane and Comarach and all them.
Yeah.
And we did it like in about 6 days.
Just because you didn't learn them at school doesn't mean that some other school didn't. Those other ones.
Yeah,
you know?
no, that's. I remember when I saw the album, I picked up the CD. I came into the radio station. I said, "What a great name for an album!" Because you look down the back, somebody we did.
Yeah.
Well, I had them bet into me. I know that. But
Yeah, I had learned some of them at school, and some of them I half knew. I think we sang some of them in the Corella when we were small.
yeah.
And so they're great songs, like Neil Law, and some of them like
Hey Machine and all them ones.
yeah. So So that was 10 years ago in Christmas 2008. That was the year my mother died, the same year I was out in Australia. And on her way to heaven, she waved a magic wand and she got me a hit record.
Wow. That was a nice thing.
Yeah, that was for leaving the bank, like, it was a compensation.
Actually, you'll come nicely around to it now, because I know you've got a gig to go to in Dublin and all that, and taking up a lot of your time. The way we finish these ones off is looking back on it all, from that was, you know, the first interview in the bank and going into the rock band, and where we are now, sitting in your kitchen and the big career behind you.
Whoa. Sitting in the kitchen. It's not a kitchen, man. John, tell him what this place is.
Hit Factory.
There you go.
I thought that was the else in the house.
Welcome to the Hit Factory. I always wanted to say that.
So, is there something, John, looking back over it all, is there one thing that makes the whole journey worthwhile, or one specific moment that you...
Like a person, or a place, or a song?
Well, what was a very special moment for me was the time that Christy Moore came to Gorta Taggart. No, like I spent a lot of my childhood in Bantry on my mother's home place with my Uncle Tim, the farmer. And he died in 2005 or 2006, and I wrote that song about the farm with the names of the fields. And I had often been down there as a kid, like, and then I brought out that song in 2008 on the album My Dark Rosaline. The song is called Gorta Taggart. I know, unpronounceable, like, but Gorta Taggart, the farm. And then Christy got onto me, Christy Moore, raving about the song, and could he sing the song? And then he was in West Cork at the time, and he came up to visit the farm. And when Christy came to Gorta Taggart, and he sang the Cliffs of Dooneen inside in the kitchen, my Auntie Mary and my Auntie Chrissy and all that. For me, that was a special moment, because it seemed like I was on the right track all the time.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What a guy to have do that as well.
Yeah, and then he sang the song, and he does a great job of the song, like, but there was something about that seemed a bit extraordinary.
Yeah.
Yeah. There you are, no, there's my moment.
John, thanks very much for your time.
John.
Thanks a million, PJ. Thanks a million, Roy. Rock on, lads.
You're listening to the Song Collector podcast, brought to you from Cork, Ireland, by Roy Buckley Music.
You know, if we didn't run out of time, we'd still be there. He was running off to do a show
in Dublin. Yeah, he was off to Dublin.
John Spillane, the great one. Now,
big time. Yeah, I mean, absolute legend. I hope that he keeps writing songs forever.
New music again. New music from an old friend, the great Francie Conway. Tell me about this one.
Again, Francie Conway, a great friend to us here on the at the Song Collector sessions. We must get him in for a chat when he's down our way. I mean,
a wealth of stories. The guy has worked with
everyone. Yeah, he has. I mean, I rang Francie one time where he was in Montreux recording, and he was just after using Freddie Mercury's microphone and David Bowie's guitar, and Dave Richards, who was producing Queen and everyone else, was producing Francie's track, and I a couple of his tracks.
Yeah,
and I was going.
He regularly works in the studio where Freddie recorded and where David Bowie recorded.
Yeah, and others too. Yeah. But in Ireland, Francie has worked with. He's great pals with Finbar Fury. They worked together over the years. He was in the Furies for a while as well back in his day. He's involved in the rock school, and that's another thing about Francie. His songs and his accolades, his accomplishments, his achievements, and the people he's worked with, from famous guitarists like Jan Ackerman to our own back here in Ireland, Finbar Fury and Christy Dignam and everyone. He's worked with everyone, stands on his own 2 feet, still writing songs for ages. And he just sent me this new track, One for Europe. I was going, Jesus Christ, Francie, I think this is my favourite Francie Conway song ever. Great production on it, and
his production values are so high,
big time. Yeah,
really. Look, you don't go to Montreux with cheap production values. His production values are top end.
Well, I
always have been.
I think to Francie's credit, he probably cost him nothing, because I think he was invited over. That's even better, you know.
Yeah, brilliant.
But Francie is known everywhere, and the stories about Francie are not fit for telling.
Let's just hear the song.
Some of them. Anyway.
Let's hear the song.
We'll catch him when he's down here in Cork, or if we catch him along the road somewhere. We'll definitely sit down and have a chat with him. I'd love to.
enough, we've built enough. Ancient voices, tribal lands, new days dawning, moving sands. Taking time to see the truth through the eyes of children yet to be. Will they forgive us? Make us see. Just one for Europe. Let's go walk around. No need for giant steps. We tread on patient ground. Many cultures joining hands. Many words, many lands. Open boundaries, open hearts with open minds. Let's make a start. Just one for Europe. Let's go walk around. No need for giant steps. We tread on patient ground. Just a crack in the ice. This exit will not divide. Absolutely nothing is served by taking sides. We've killed enough, we've built enough. Ancient voices, tribal lands, new days dawning, moving sands. Just one for Europe. Let's go walk around. No need for giant steps. We tread on patient ground. Just one for Europe. Let's go walk around. No need for giant steps. We tread on patient ground. Just one for Europe. Let's go walk around. No need for giant steps. We tread on patient ground. Just one for Europe. Let's go walk around. No need for giant steps. We tread on patient ground.
That's a cracker. That's typical Francie. Top
Great.
quality in every department.
Oh yeah,
All
big
right.
time, great production.
During the week, Roy, you were telling me you were also with an absolute legend, and someone who's become like a father figure to you, and someone I know we hope to talk to for this show at some point. Pete.
Pete St. John.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, geez, the last few weeks I'm having a great time. I've been with Phil Coulter. I was actually with Declan Sinnott recently down in Ballycotton, but just the other night I was with Pete St. John. I mean, the man wrote so many folk classics. He's around 86, 87 years old now, and he's still penning stuff. He's written The Fields of Athenry. He's written Dublin, the Rare Old Times. He's written Hey Johnny Magory. He's written The Ferryman. He's written Danny Farrell. He's written When Margaret Was 11. He's written Ringsend Rose, and loads more. So you're talking Luke Kelly, Finbar Fury, Jim McCann, Paddy Riley, all the Irish greats in the folk world, which is right up my street, as you know. So, I mean, it's a hero of mine. And to be invited along and asked to, represent him with songs or to showcase his songs and be there with him, always a massive thrill for me. I mean, the guy is an absolute hero of mine, yeah.
And he's become a dear friend of yours.
Big
and
time, yeah.
Hopefully we'll get a chance to talk to him.
He
during
has
2019.
some stories for you. Oh, God. That man, he's very witty. Very witty.
Well, we look forward to getting a chat with him in
I'd
the
love
new
to,
year.
yeah.
Brilliant.
So it was nice to see him just before Christmas as well. I hadn't seen him for nearly a year. We've been on the phone and chatting and email and stuff, but I hadn't seen him for about a year.
Before we go, I know you wanted to ask me something.
Oh yeah, you're a journalist at heart, and you're always asking me the question, so I thought I might spin it back on you. Baby, it's cold outside, and the Fairytale of New York and all that. What are you making of all this PC stuff? Because I see you're very active on your social media about this.
Let's deal with the Baby, it's
PC
cold outside
bullshit, as you're calling it.
Let's deal with the Baby, it's cold outside. That is a parlour song written 60 years ago by a guy for himself and his wife to sing at parties. So that's what that song's about. And looking back on it with sort of these woke eyes of the enlightened noughties, you're going to see things that were never there at all in the mind of the writer. That's what's been happening. And I think for radio stations to be killing it off just because someone is looking back on the 40s with the eyes of the noughties, it's just stupid. It's stupid. It's virtue signalling of the worst order. That's that one.
And do you think that this PC brigade is really getting out of hand?
I have no problem with people being PC. I have no problem with using careful language so you don't deliberately hurt anybody.
Okay.
But there's a difference between doing that and looking back at a song written 60 years ago. Like, let's start on the works of William Shakespeare and put them through the shredder.
Yeah.
You know, because if you look at that, art is art and it's of its time.
I just said this myself on my own social media.
And it's written with the intentions of the time. Fairytale of New York's another one.
Yeah.
Shane MacGowan issued a statement on that and basically said, if you are, first of all, characters in songs aren't always likeable. She wasn't likeable. She's not meant to be likeable. They're not likeable people, but they're helplessly in love with both themselves and the drink. It was of its time. And basically, if you are upset by the use of that word, faggot, then you don't understand the song. That's pretty much what he said.
I just said it myself the other night on my own social media about the characters thing. Like, I love characters in songs, and a lot of writers use characters in songs to get a point across. And I brought it up about, does that mean so that if we're going to be ripping songs apart lyric by lyric, no, if this is the world we're looking at, does that mean that books, plays, sculptures, paintings, anything else in the world of art, is all this going to be censored so by the PC monster as well?
Let's do today's stuff for today with today's values, but let us not go back to art of a previous time.
But all characters can't be all nicey nice, you know. What good is a hero if you haven't got a villain?
This is true. But also stuff like Baby It's Cold Outside that was written as a harmless, as I say, parlour song, bit of fun. You cannot impose the values of today on something written 60 years ago when people didn't even think about these things. We better let it there because we're running out of time, lad.
Okay.
Let's plug the email address again. Your new music, your new songs, get them in good quality. Songcollectorpodcast@gmail.com. We will have a show in the new year featuring a lot of new music.
Yeah.
So we're choosing that at the moment. So get it into us over the holidays and we listen to it.
I think we'll hit off with a big one.
Oh, we've got
one.
Finbar Fury coming up, the first show of 2019, an interview we did with him in the Everyman, and again, one that the only reason we stopped talking was that he had to go on stage, so it was one of those. So listen, to all our listeners, have a great Christmas. We don't use happy holidays on this show, it's happy Christmas and happy 2019, and we'll see you early in the new year. Songcollectorpodcast@gmail.com. Spread the word and keep sharing. Cheers, Roy. Happy Christmas,
BJ.
mate.
You too, buddy. Happy Christmas.
Thank you for listening to the Song Collector Podcast, brought to you by Roy Buckley Music. Now please share the link with your friends.